cross-platform support is becoming more important in the world of video games. Hits like Call of Duty, Warzone 2.0 and Fortnite have thrust crossplay into the spotlight, and now most AAA multiplayer games launch with at least partial cross-platform support. With that in mind, in the video I brought the best cross-platform games. Though Alien Isolation is rightly remembered as the pinnacle for games tied to the beloved horror franchise Aliens, Fireteam Elite does very well in turning the property over to a different genre. Developer Cold Iron Studios took a leaf out of the Colonial Marines playbook and centered their product on action over survival horror. The story within the game is designed to be a direct sequel to the movie trilogy, and there's plenty of fan service in there to make it worth playing purely as a fan of the story. Though it undoubtedly has some bugs and issues, it's a lot of fun fighting for survival among friends. Although its popularity may have dropped off quite a bit since the beginning of 2021, Among Us remains one of the most popular multiplayer games on Steam. With new maps arriving on a somewhat regular basis and streamers continuing to support the title, that doesn't seem likely to change anytime soon. Following the game's release on next-gen consoles, Among Us now supports crossplay functionality across all major platforms, including next-gen consoles. What's more, for those wondering, the VR version of the game also supports crossplay, with players on Steam, Rift, and Meta Quest all able to play together. Apex Legends has carved a niche for itself in the Battle Royale genre by centering its gameplay around teams. The game revolves even more around multiplayer than other Battle Royales because players don't have the option to play solo. Fortunately, it has cross-platform play to ensure games are always fast and well-populated. Apex Legends players on PC, Xbox, PlayStation, and Switch can all find themselves in the same game. Apex Legends is another title that excludes mobile players from its crossplay. However, Android and iOS players play together, but they can't join games with other platforms. This game is all about teamwork, folks. There will be no glory hogs ruining it for everyone. This free-to-play online shooter puts you in the role of either a magistrate or paladin, two factions who are combating each other. You need to be in constant contact with team members if you want to win a match. You have all the gameplay modes you love: Team Deathmatch, Ranked, Onslaught, in which teams battle over a map for points, and the base game mode, Siege. These great gameplay modes, along with a creative mix of sci-fi and fantasy, will satisfy more competitive gamers out there. Granted, Back 4 Blood may not have been the true Left 4 Dead spiritual successor that many had been hoping for, but it's far from a bad game. In fact, the game's post-release support was actually pretty decent while it lasted, leading to some solid DLC content as well as plenty of patches and updates which helped to iron out most if not all of the initial wrinkles. Like its spiritual predecessor, Back 4 Blood is a game that was developed with co-op multiplayer in mind. With the right players, the experience can be an awful lot of fun, so it bodes well that the game offers full cross-play support. It's also spent time on both Xbox Game Pass and PS Plus, ensuring that there is a fairly constant stream of new players even today. Based on the RPG Phantasy Star universe, Phantasy Star Online 2 allows players to enter a rich and diverse action RPG world. Along with in-depth customization, Phantasy Star Online 2 gives the players a wide array of different futuristic weapons to use. Fans of RPGs, science fiction, and previous games in the series will feel right at home here. Multiplayer has always been one of the biggest selling points for the Borderlands franchise, and that's once again the case with Borderlands 3. Vault Hunters hoping to team up with their friends can do so via split screen or through the internet, with the game's online multiplayer mode offering full cross-play support. The game itself is a bit of a mixed bag, offering up the same looter-shooter combat that made the previous games so enjoyable with very little innovation. One of the most notable differences is the corny writing, but fans of the franchise should be able to look past this. If not, there's always the mute button. Overwatch 2 had a tough launch which contributed to its overwhelmingly negative Steam reviews, but it is a steady and reliable F2P, free-to-play, competitive title to play on various platforms. The game is mainly focused on PvP, player versus player, but it has cross-play and cross-save, allowing players on different platforms to connect, as well as continue playing on different devices. Because of its technical differences, Overwatch 2 tends to pull console players together, keeping PC players separately. Nevertheless, it is still possible to merge the gaming pools, making its crossplay very functional. The competitive scene of Blizzard's popular shooter needs some work, as evidenced by player reviews, but the game itself is a solid choice for fun times. For those looking for all the fun of a competitive, multiplayer fighting game without the well-known toxicity of certain communities, look no further than 2017's Brawlhalla. The game comes with a huge roster of potential champions for players to choose from to suit almost any style, and it maintains a strong community to this day. It also features a memorable cartoon art style and in-game mechanics that support the intelligent use of a character's offensive and defensive combinations. There are also a bunch of skins from other huge franchises to take advantage of, including Lara Croft and Ryu. It's a new golden age for the fighting game genre, and one of the earliest fighting games in this era is SNK's The King of Fighters 15. The King of Fighters brings together SNK's fighting game I.P.S. and a star-studded title that's grown to be SNK's most popular fighting game franchise. KOF-XV received glowing reviews, which was a relief to many KOF fans after the mixed reception The King of Fighters 14 received. KOF-XV includes rollback netcode and a newly implemented crossplay feature to ensure KOF-XV won't be left behind as newer fighting games release. While its online still has matchmaking issues, KOF-XV is still a marvelous game and one of the best KOF games yet. Love them or loathe them, most now view the Call of Duty games as being the best that the FPS genre has to offer. Surprisingly, Call of Duty: Modern Warfare 3 actually falls a little short when it comes to the single-player experience, but the game's multiplayer mode is every bit as enjoyable as fans have come to expect from the long-running franchise. This is made all the better by the fact that, like many of its predecessors, Modern Warfare 3 boasts full cross-play support. Granted, this is now pretty much a given for a modern Call of Duty title, yet, with so many other big-budget franchises like FIFA making a mess of their cross-play support, this is something that definitely should not be taken for granted. One of the 3 truly cross-platform titles, Dauntless is an action role-playing game by Epic Games. It's free to play and has a great aesthetic. Not only that, but the gameplay is addictive and is often compared to the popular Monster Hunter franchise by Capcom. You are a slayer, tasked with taking down beasts called behemoths. Like Monster Hunter, the player will use the materials collected from slaying monsters to make more powerful gear to take on more hardcore foes. While the annual Call of Duty titles also support cross-platform play, Warzone 2.0 just about has the beating of them thanks to its larger player base and its better selection of weapons. In fact, the latter actually incorporates many of the best weapons and maps from other Call of Duty games, both past and present. Crossplay works across PC, PlayStation, and Xbox systems, and playing with friends on other platforms is as simple as signing up for an Activision account and sharing the ID. When it comes to realistic FPS titles with crossplay support, there really aren't too many better options out there. The NBA 2K series was one of the most popular franchises to yet receive crossplay functionality. That is until NBA 2K24, where crossplay wasn't just implemented for standard matches, but accessible for just about any mode. The catch is that crossplay in NBA 2K24 is limited to PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series XS. No crossplay for Switch, PC, or past-gen versions of NBA 2K24, but it's a start. NBA 2K24 features some of the best overall visuals and gameplay from any sports franchise, although it may grow stale for anyone who plays NBA 2K games year in and year out. On top of that, predatory microtransactions can take away from the experience. For first-time players, NBA 2K24 is a great place to start, especially as the 2023-24 NBA season gets underway. Almost a full decade on from the release of Chivalry, Medieval Warfare on Windows, Chivalry 2 was released on current and last-gen consoles in June of 2021. Like its predecessor, it's a hack-and-slash action game with a heavy emphasis placed on multiplayer gameplay. The game looks fantastic and combat has never felt more fluid, with improvements found right across the board. Those hoping to play it on PC may be a little disappointed to learn that it's an Epic exclusive, but for those who don't care or will be playing the game on console, it really is a great multiplayer title with an awful lot to offer. Dead by Daylight has proven itself one of the most successful multiplayer horror games of recent years. It has managed to outlast or outperform competitors like Friday the 13th, the game, and Evil Dead, the game. It's become a horror tour de force, with players able to play with characters from franchises like Halloween, Stranger Things, and Resident Evil. Dead by Daylight has had console crossplay since 2020. Players on PlayStation, Xbox, Switch, and PC can add each other as friends and play with one another. However, there are some limitations. Mobile gamers don't have crossplay with other platforms, instead limited to crossplay between Android and iOS. The Crash Bandicoot franchise has seen its fair share of ups and downs over the years, with most of the latter coming after Naughty Dog handed over control of the IP. Crash Team Rumble falls somewhere in the middle of this roller coaster ride, failing to recapture the magic of the first few Crash games yet avoiding most of the pitfalls that hampered the Traveler's Tales and Vicarious Visions developed installments throughout the noughties and 2010s. Crash Team Rumble is a game that nobody was really asking for, but that doesn't mean that there's not still fun to be had here. The multiplayer mayhem is actually incredibly enjoyable in short bursts, offering up an age-appropriate competitive team-based experience that rewards strategic gameplay much better than many of its peers. The monetization is a little heavy-handed, but this probably shouldn't come as too much of a surprise given that the game is published by Activision. One of the contenders for the Game of the Year award at TGA 2021, Deathloop is highly regarded as an immersive and unmissable shooter experience. Arcane's critically acclaimed title sets players on a mission to eliminate 8 targets within a time frame, but the issue is that the main character, Colt, is stuck in a time loop and returns to the beginning of his mission whenever he dies. Simultaneously, this assassin is being hunted down by Juliana. Although the main goal is getting Colt through his mission, this game can be played in multiplayer, with the other player embodying Juliana. It is a boon that Deathloop has crossplay, as this allows players to engage in a nerve-wracking multiplayer hunt against one another regardless of the platform they use. When it comes to live service games, they don't come much better than Destiny 2. Since releasing in late 2017, Bungie has provided players with exemplary support, not just in the form of regular expansions and updates, but also when it comes to bug fixes and glitches too. It's the perfect example of how a live service game should work and likely a big part of what led to Sony acquiring Bungie in early 2022. Despite the game now being more than 5 years old, the developer still has plans for the future, with the Final Shape expansion expected in the coming year or so. This forward-thinking approach has resulted in excellent player retention, ensuring that there are always plenty of people around to play with. The fact that the game also supports crossplay makes finding a good party all the easier. Blizzard has had a very up and down few years, and the arrival of Diablo 4 was, for some, supposed to mark the start of a new and more positive era for the company. Anticipation for the game was off the charts, and what fans got was a very good ARPG that perhaps hasn't reached the heights that it should, yet. The third game in the series also suffered from intense issues on release that were gradually ironed out and patched into oblivion. What players were left with was a post-Reaper of Souls world in which they finally got the Diablo game they deserved. With a very healthy player base and extensive crossplay opportunities, there is every chance that could happen again. Given the huge popularity of the franchise, it's a little surprising that it took so long for EA to add crossplay to its FIFA series. Worse still, crossplay support in FIFA 23 was pretty poor, with several co-op game modes left out and players unable to play together with their cross-gen friends. Thankfully, EA Sports FC 24 at least addresses one of these two major complaints. Crossplay now works across every multiplayer game mode, though, sadly, not for those playing on consoles from different generations, nor for anybody playing the much-maligned Legacy Edition version of the game on Switch. It's still a huge step forward when compared to last year's edition though, and the lack of cross-gen crossplay will presumably become less of an issue as more people upgrade to current-gen consoles. Barely scraping onto this list thanks to its support for players who want to team up with friends on the older generation of the same console line, Elden Ring is every bit the game that its reception suggested. Perhaps slightly unusual in the way it approaches multiplayer, the system feels more at home here than it did in other From Software games like Dark Souls. Players can leave messages behind for others to discover, and it's frankly a godsend to be able to summon another body to help with some of the game's more notoriously difficult boss fights. Sure, it's not a traditional multiplayer experience, but it is a spectacular RPG that is all the better when occasionally enjoyed with others. Sam Raimi's Evil Dead series is one that should need no introduction to seasoned horror fans. In fact, even those who've never watched any of the movies will likely recognize its iconic main protagonist Ash Williams, who is played by Bruce Campbell. It's a character that Campbell has portrayed on countless occasions now, and he once again reprises the role for Evil Dead, the game. Fans of asymmetrical multiplayer games may well be surprised by just how much care and attention has gone into crafting this one. The developers clearly have a lot of love and respect for the franchise, and this results in an experience that will both terrify and delight fans of both the franchise and the genre itself. Better still, they'll be able to experience the title with friends on other platforms, with full crossplay support available right from the get-go. The biggest challenge for any modern multiplayer game is to maintain a large enough player base to pair players up quickly once they join a lobby, which is where cross-platform support can come in very handy. Capcom's Dino-infused third-person shooter Exoprimal benefits in this regard, with matchmaking being a relatively speedy affair thanks to its implementation of crossplay. Unfortunately, however, Exoprimal's crossplay support is only partial, with the functionality only currently available in matchmaking. This means that those hoping to party up with friends from another ecosystem are out of luck for the moment, though it is possible that full crossplay support will be added to the game somewhere further down the road. Few games arrive on the scene in quite the same way that Fall Guys did at the height of the pandemic in August 2020. Perhaps due, in part, to the enforced isolation that many people were placed into, the game's blend of childlike, cartoony art direction and simple gameplay mechanics proved to be the perfect tonic. Players are tasked with progressing their adorable little bean avatar through a series of obstacle courses and mini-games to finish in the top half or on the victorious team. Each round will feature fewer and fewer players until a final challenge crowns a solo victor. It's the ultimate party game and supports crossplay between all major consoles and PC. The Finals is far from the most polished free-to-play FPS game on the market, but it is one of the genre's most fun-to-play offerings. This is especially true when played with friends, so it should come as good news to learn that the Finals boasts full crossplay support across all available platforms. One of the things that helps to set the game apart from its many peers is its verticality, allowing players to effortlessly scale buildings on their way to their next kill. The high-octane gunplay is heavily influenced by the player's loadout, with a decent selection of weapons, gadgets, and specializations allowing players to tweak and tailor the experience to best suit their own needs and playstyle. The undisputed king of battle royale games, and arguably the best cross-platform game, Fortnite is a gaming sensation. Regardless of the merchandise, memes, and culture, the game itself is truly groundbreaking. Through cross-platform play, players can build forts and gun down other players in an addictive, competitive battle royale. Fortnite has become so successful that many games are coming out with multiplayer modes including battle royale. There truly is nothing like building amazingly creative structures with friends. I have spent many hours messing around with friends, sometimes blowing up their houses, helping them mine in caverns, and build amazing buildings that exhibit creativity. I will never forget the feeling of running from nighttime monsters, trying to get back to my house as quickly as possible. Minecraft is a great game for those simply looking to kill a bit of time or flex their creativity. However, anyone looking for a game with a real goal or purpose may find its lack of objectives to be a little disconcerting, unless, of course, they're willing to delve into the world of multiplayer survival. Alternatively, they could just check out Minecraft Dungeons, a multiplayer dungeon crawler with full crossplay support. It may not offer up as much freedom as the game from which it spun off of, but that doesn't mean that there's not still plenty of fun to be had here. With numerous items and enchantments available, the game allows for a wide variety of builds and playstyles and is thus incredibly replayable. There are certainly better dungeon crawlers out there for the average player, but not for those who really love Minecraft. It might seem logical to think that at some point Mortal Kombat's mixture of ultraviolence and bonkers story might become tiresome, but that day is yet to arrive. Mortal Kombat 1 is a noticeable improvement over the last few, offering greatly updated visuals and gameplay that rewards players who learn their character combos and time them properly. Its Kameo system gives players greater individuality from Mortal Kombat 11. The developers had a real eye on crossplay, as they hilariously referred to it, and as a result, players can join those on other consoles for some melee brutality. Equally, Xbox or PlayStation pals can join one another via the lobby system to truly test the bounds of their friendships in the most violent and well-polished game of its kind. However, the much-maligned Switch version lacks cross-play functionality. Maybe it's for the best. Despite having once been a PlayStation-exclusive series, MLB The Show 23 can now be enjoyed on both Xbox and the Nintendo Switch as well as on Sony machines. Just to add a little bit more salt into Sony's wounds, the game, much like its predecessors, was available on Game Pass at launch, further strengthening the service's position at the top of the pile. The 2023 edition looks fantastic, especially on PS5 and Xbox Series machines, and also offers a lot more content than any of its recent predecessors. Some may have expected a little more from it due to another year having passed since the leap in hardware, but when it comes to baseball video games, no series can match the show for authenticity. Microtransactions have no place in a full-priced console game, but they do make sense to some degree in a free-to-play gacha game like Genshin Impact. Genshin Impact is an action role-playing game with heavy online and gacha elements. Its art style, gameplay, and open world will quickly remind new players of recent The Legend of Zelda games like Tears of the Kingdom. Genshin Impact's community is robust and passionate, so it isn't tough to get help and find people to play with. With others or alone, there's plenty to do in Genshin Impact, and its cross-play functionality ensures its world is always populated. With the Street Fighter series taking something of a step backward with its fifth mainline installment and the complete absence of a new Virtua Fighter title, Mortal Kombat became the game of choice for many fighting game fans. Its success is as much down to its own merits as the failings of its competitors though, with Mortal Kombat 11 taking the series to new heights with its highly refined gameplay and well-polished visuals. Crossplay, or crossplay, as the devs have dubbed it, puts players on all PlayStation and Xbox consoles into the same matchmaking pool for casual online game modes. Those hoping to play with friends on other systems can do so as well, although they'll first need to coordinate with each other outside of the game to find each other in one of the many crossplay lobbies. Like many of gaming's long-running franchises, the Need for Speed series has at times lost its way a little over the years. Thankfully, however, after the much-maligned 2015 reboot, the franchise now seems to be back on track, with Need for Speed Unbound building upon the solid if unspectacular groundwork laid by Need for Speed Heat. Being the series' 25th installment, it should perhaps come as little surprise to find a fairly well-polished engine under the game's hood and one that can drive players toward a lot of fun. Crossplay makes the experience even more enjoyable, with players able to race against those on other systems to ensure that they're never waiting too long to get behind the wheel. Outriders has been a cross-play game since launch and, in fact, it was one of the title's major selling points ahead of its release back in 2021. The third-person shooter was not as great as advertised but still provided a solid gameplay experience, especially when playing in coupe with various classes. Though the game can be experienced in a single-player mode, having friends join in the chaos is half of the experience. Being able to strategize with friends, each with different sets of skills and weapons, to face tough opponents makes for a fun time. Luckily, there are no platform restrictions when it comes to activating multiplayer, as Outriders is fully cross-play. Another important detail about the game is that it is cross-progression enabled, too, which means that players can carry over their progress in the campaign to another platform if they choose to do so. Another entry on this list that is over 5 years old but maintains a significant and passionate fan base is Rainbow Six Siege. As of Season 4 of Year 7, full crossplay between Xbox, PlayStation, and PC has been added as a supported feature, with Ubisoft continuing to update the game and add new features and modes for players to enjoy. The premise is relatively simple, with teams designated as either attackers or defenders. With various objectives like rescuing hostages or destroying bombs, it's the gameplay that rewards skill and careful play that makes Siege truly stand out. Add to that some of the best destructible environments ever, and it's difficult to find a game that offers more scope for fun. Fans of both RC cars and soccer, or football depending on your location, will be right at home here. The fast, aggressive, and addicting gameplay was released in 2013 and has been pretty popular ever since. Its great customization, multiple game modes with esports emphasis, Rocket League is easily going to be popular for years to come. Given how crowded the free-to-play hero shooter market is these days, it's perhaps not all that surprising that Rogue Company had a bit of trouble finding its footing early on. However, with the game now officially out of beta and available on all major platforms, it's slowly but surely becoming popular thanks to its regular updates and the wide variety of playable rogues that are on offer. At the time of writing, Rogue Company has 25 different playable characters, with many more expected in the coming months and years. This, together with its fast-paced gameplay and unique take on the genre, makes it well worth checking out, particularly for those who are looking for a great cross-play game that they can enjoy with their friends. As a genre, MOBAs aren't generally high on the cross-play agenda thanks to their usual incompatibility with console control systems. Releasing in 2014, Hi-Rez Studios turned this and several other concepts on their head. With fewer abilities, players take control of their champion from a third-person perspective. Though it takes a lot of getting used to, it really is a nice change from the usual top-down fare. The game features multiple different game modes from casual to competitive, and players get to control one of an ever-expanding pantheon of gods from around the world. With characters falling into one of 5 classes: Assassin, Guardian, Hunter, Mage, or Warrior, there are several options out there for users to choose their own way to play. The concept behind Splitgate is so simple that it's a little surprising that it took so long for somebody to think of it. On the surface, it's a fairly standard first-person shooter, but the ability to create wormholes akin to the ones found in Valve's hugely influential physics-based puzzle game, Portal, really helps to set the free-to-play multiplayer title apart from its many peers. Not only can Splitgate players use these wormholes to quickly traverse the map, but they can also shoot through them in order to pick off enemies. This, in turn, makes the experience feel far more strategic than a typical FPS game, with players really needing to think about how best to use portals in order to gain the upper hand. With over 5 million people owning the game on Steam alone, matchmaking typically makes for a fairly speedy process, particularly as Splitgate supports crossplay across all of the platforms on which it's available. As a game, Street Fighter VI might seem to be the more sanitized cousin of the Mortal Kombat series, but as the true OG of the fighting genre, it does remain at the top of the tree. With over 7 years between this and the last game, fans had a long time to wait, but when it did eventually arrive in the middle of 2023, there was almost nothing to be disappointed with aside from some inevitable balancing issues. Though it does have an impressive single-player campaign, the focus on multiplayer is clear, with crossplay available between consoles and PC and support for up to 16 players. It's nothing new, as Capcom has utilized crossplay since the PS3 and Vita versions of Street Fighter X Tekken in 2012. SF6 is full of casual options are there for those who just want to have fun, and competitive paths are hugely populated and rewarding for those willing to put the time in. If 2023 is the year of the fighting game, SF6 is leading the charge, and with new characters coming fast and furious, there is sure to be a character for everyone. Despite being a spin-off game, Tiny Tina's Wonderlands is actually ahead of the main Borderlands series in a number of key areas. For one thing, the game's class and skills systems are far more intuitive than the ones found in the main series and do a much better job of allowing players to tailor their characters to better match their own individual playstyles. The writing and humor also feel a lot less forced, particularly when compared to Borderlands 3. Another area where Wonderlands comes out on top is in the crossplay department, with the game offering full crossplay support at launch. In Borderlands 3's defense, Gearbox Software did eventually extend the game's crossplay support to include PlayStation consoles, though many will argue that this news came 2 years too late. It's been over a decade since Warframe first hit virtual shelves, and, despite a noticeable lack of confidence from publishers in the industry at the time, it has gone on to become one of the most popular games in the multiple genres it spans across. Players take control of space ninjas known as Tenno in a far-off future that blends gun and melee combat with spectacular movement and procedurally generated levels. The game also features vast open-world areas in which to engage with other players, as well as PvE co-op and a PvP element via an area known as the Conclave. Though it didn't launch with any form of crossplay, it's now possible to play the game with players on any console or PC after the feature was added at the beginning of 2022. Released in February of 2023, Wild Hearts is an action RPG set in a fantasy world that was heavily inspired by feudal Japan. It not only incorporates themes and ideas ripped right out of Asian mythology but is also packed full of bright and vibrant colors which help to make the world of Azuma feel far more alive than it has any right to feel. The game is a lot like a cross between Monster Hunter and Toukiden, the latter of which was also developed by Omega Force. Players can team up with up to 2 other people as they hunt down some of the game's giant kimono monsters, with full cross-play support ensuring that it doesn't matter which platform they are all playing on. The World Rally Championship Series has been quietly making up ground on the racing genre's heavy hitters for quite some time now. Though it's probably not quite ready to overtake at this point, the likes of Dirt and Gran Turismo will likely be staring anxiously into their rear-view mirrors, as WRC Generations is now mere meters away from catching up in terms of quality. The game is absolutely stunning at times and features some of the most realistic driving mechanics around. There's a wide selection of both current and legendary cars for players to drive to and plenty of great game modes to keep them entertained for hours on end. Like its predecessor, the game also supports crossplay. Though not every mode can make the most of the functionality, it tends to be the ones geared around local multiplayer that don't, so this shouldn't be too much of an issue for most players. Following a calamitous launch back in 2016, the team over at Hello Games has really turned things around for No Man's Sky. A plethora of new features and functionality has been added to the game since its release, the most notable of which is a much-requested multiplayer mode. Providing they have their friends' player codes, it's possible for players to join those on PC, PlayStation, or Xbox machines. Much like some of the other big cross-platform games, No Man's Sky also received a next-gen patch that improves performance and increases the maximum lobby size for those playing on console. After the absolute dumpster fire that was WWE 2K20, expectations were pretty low for WWE 2K22. It would seem that taking a year out to get its stuff together really did the franchise the world of good though, and WWE 2K23 continues this upward trend. The game offers plenty more big improvements which have helped to make it one of the best wrestling games that fans have seen since the mid-2010s, maybe even of all time. Though true crossplay support would once again have been nice, the ability to play with friends on older consoles is still very much appreciated. Better still, just like in last year's installment, community creations are available across all platforms, ensuring that players can share their custom superstars with whomever they like. So, did you like the games I recommended? So leave your like, subscribe to the channel to follow me and activate the bell because I post a lot of videos on this channel and you can't miss it. I would like to remind you that in the description we have a list of different products that can make your gaming experience much better. If you want to buy, the link will be in the description. Anyway, thank you very much for following me this far and until next time, bye.